Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all here tonight. Thanks for coming out. Good to see you. And welcome to prayer meeting here at Faith. I'm so grateful to be here tonight and just be studying God's words. We're going to be talking tonight about our own words and the way that we speak. Job, that poor guy. Job observed in Job chapter 6, verse 25, he said, "How forceful are upright words." Isn't that true? When you speak the right words at the right time, the right attitude, really lands where it needs to land. And Job, of course, made that observation in the middle of some not so upright words from his friends. But it's true. What a good proverb. So as we prepare to think about our own words tonight, and as Pastor Jim is going to lead us through that portion of Colossians, I'd like for us all to pray together, just briefly through song, as we stand and sing 513, "Speak, O Lord." Let's all stand together and sing as we're gathered to receive God's word tonight. Speak, O Lord, as we come to you to receive the food of your holy word. Take your truth planted deep in us, shape and fashion us in your likeness, that the light of Christ might be seen today in our acts of love and our deeds of faith. Speak, O Lord, and fulfill in us all your purposes for your glory. Teach us, Lord, full obedience, holy reverence, true humility. Test our thoughts and our attitudes in the radiance of your purity. Cause our faith to rise, cause our eyes to see your majestic love and authority. Words of power that can never fail, let their truth prevail over unbelief. Speak, O Lord, and renew our minds. Help us grasp the heights of your plans for us. Truths unchanged from the dawn of time that will echo down through eternity. And by grace we'll stand on your promises, and by faith we'll walk as you walk with us. Speak, O Lord, till your church is built, and the earth is filled with your glory. Amen. You may be seated.
Colossians chapter 4, and tonight we'll be looking at verse 6, as well as numerous other verses elsewhere. Colossians chapter 4 and verse 6. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt. Are you convicted yet? I am. That you may know how to answer every man. Is there anyone here tonight that never regrets something that you just said? Your speech is always wholesome. You never have to apologize because of anything that you said? Anybody? Okay, well, I'm preaching to the right crowd tonight then. I have to preach to myself first. I think that verse 6 can, in a sense, stand alone. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt. But we need to also consider it in its context. I believe that in verses 3 through 6, Paul is expressing deep concern for effective witnessing. And so in the context, that's what he's been talking about the last two sessions. We've been talking about praying for opportunities, first of all, like Paul did in verse 3, wherewithal praying for us that God would open to us a door of utterance or an opportunity to speak the mystery of Christ. And so we must pray for opportunities, and then we must know and use proper doctrine. We must develop a proper testimony. That's what we looked at last week. If our words are going to have any impact on other people, they're going to have to see it lived out in our own lives. And then we need to buy up those opportunities when they come our way. So when they do come, here's how we should express ourselves. And this is still in the context of the new man. And so the speech of the new man should be, first of all, what I'm going to call polished. So there must be a refinement. Would you agree with me? There is nothing graceful about the old nature. The old nature is pretty ugly. If you were saved when you were old enough to remember what your life was like before then, you can think back and wow. Yeah. And so, one of the problems of the old nature is the important matter of speech. Now, backing up a little bit, because the context still is dealing with putting off the old, putting on the new. Backing up to verses 8 and 9 of chapter 3. But now ye also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Lie not one to another, seeing that you have put off the old man with his deeds. So these are pretty much all matters of speech. Now, it's possible to be angry without saying a word, but usually words come out, don't they? Anger and wrath and blasphemy, filthy communication, and so on. So our speech is an area which definitely needs renewal. Verse 10 goes on to say, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. So one of the very obvious and very important areas of putting on the new man is learning how to talk right. One thing that has amazed me and that I'm very appreciative of is that for 53 years, never once has a swear word come out of my mouth. That used to be, didn't used to be the way. I'm glad it's that way now. An area that definitely needs renewal. It takes the grace of God to overcome old habits of speech. And so as we grow, God makes us spiritually graceful. Let your speech be always with grace. A spiritually graceful person glorifies God. And I believe that you and I need to achieve a certain dignity as a child of God. As a matter of fact, that's one of the requirements for a deacon. The word sober is used, but it really means dignified. And that shouldn't be just deacons only, but all Christians. We have a more elaborate description in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. And you think, well, okay, I'm doing okay on that. But that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. How often have I said something that did not minister grace? It did not edify. And that's what our speech is supposed to do. Now, some things are just neutral. Some speech, it's not going to affect people one way or the other. But in the context, no corrupt communication. So here's some really serious things to ask ourselves. Does my speech, not only what I say, but how I say it, does it edify? Does it make the person I'm talking to or people around me grow? Does it minister grace? And again, that's something that only comes from God. Doesn't come from us. We're totally dependent upon Him. So there must be a refinement. Secondly, there must be a regularity because of the word there, always or always. At all times and under all circumstances. Sometimes we justify our wrong speaking, don't we? We tell ourselves lies. Well, if so-and-so would just shape up, I wouldn't have to say all these things, or however we think it through. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think that verse 6 can, in a sense, stand alone. Let your speech be always with grace. Always, always. So always is not just when you're witnessing, but it's all the time. And so there must be a regularity, whether undergoing persecution, stress, difficulty, injustice, whether it's toward your spouse, your children, other Christians or unsaved people. Our speech is always to be kind, gentle, truthful, loving. And so, some serious questions to ask ourselves. Does my speech minister grace unto the hearers? Speech of the new man should be polished. Secondly, it should be palatable. The verse says something about our deficiency. In its natural state, the tongue is, as James describes it in chapter 3, verses 6 through 8, and the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beasts, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind, but the tongue can no man tame. It is a ruly evil, full of deadly poison. No wonder it requires the grace of God to change the way we talk. And sometimes we might even be saying okay words, but the way we're saying them is not ministering grace. The Lord said this, and this is important. The Lord said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So if we have trouble controlling our tongue, then we better what? That's not a rhetorical question.
Shut up.
I'm so glad you came tonight, Russ. Check the heart. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So if our speaking, our manner of speaking, or the words we use, or whatever, is not ministering grace to the hearers, then there's a problem with the heart. That's what the Lord said. And that takes some serious soul searching, some serious prayer. I think you said that. Pray. Definitely. So words are an expression, are you with me? Words are an expression of the true condition of your heart. And so our speech will be effective in either a positive or a negative way. Left to ourselves, we have a deficiency. So then we see next God's demand. Let your speech be seasoned with salt. The word seasoned means prepared, arranged, or made tasty or savory. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, Jesus said this, "Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men." So the Lord demonstrated there just how important this is, this speech that is seasoned with salt. It's palatable. It doesn't make people cringe. Now, this doesn't mean become an eloquent orator, because then I would just have to drop out and stop talking. As a matter of fact, Paul called himself a simple person in speech, 2 Corinthians 11:6. "But though I be rude in speech, yet not in knowledge. But we have been thoroughly made manifest among you in all things." And so Paul alludes to that in more than one place, that his speech was not enticing, it was not wise things that as men would consider them. So Paul called himself this simple person. 2 Corinthians 3:12, he goes on to say, "Seeing then that we have such hope, we use great plainness of speech." Some people have some pretty impressive vocabularies and are able to say things in such a way that almost draw a picture. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a very good quality. It really helps people understand what's being said. But at the same time, our speech needs to be that. I remember when I was still in either college or seminary, hearing over and over, when you're teaching or preaching, it should be something that a 5-year-old could understand. So plainness, great plainness of speech. In 1 Corinthians 2:4, he says this, and that's the verse I was referring to earlier, "My speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power." So our speech should bear the imprint of the influence of God in our lives. Well, no, salt makes food taste better. And graceful words will be salty. In other words, they will make a positive impression. So our speech should be polished, our speech should be palatable, and thirdly, our speech should be purposeful. The verse tells us our cause, and that is so that we will know how to answer every man. And so that really ties it in with the preceding verses. 1 Peter 3:15, "But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you, with meekness and fear." So we need to be equipped, don't we? If you haven't been able to come to Sunday school, I would encourage you to go through some of those, or all of them, really. I mean, it's going to take some time, but how to present the gospel. Sometimes we fail to witness, and we say the reason is because I don't know how. Well, that's not a good excuse, is it? So learn how. And there's no just one single way. I was taught the Romans road when I was a young Christian, nothing wrong with that, but a lot of times we need a lot more than that, don't we? We need to be able to know where to go in the Bible in order to properly witness. So here, not only be ready to give an answer, but answer in the right way. Jude 22 through 23, "And if some have compassion, making a difference, and others save with fear, pulling them out of the fire, hating even the garment spotted by the flesh." And so they're, different people we're going to talk to different ways. And it just stands to reason. It depends on, if they're real, like attacking your faith, or not even wanting to listen, or if they're more open. It's going to change the way we talk to them. And I know we talked about that a couple weeks ago, so I won't go any further with that. But in an appropriate way, we need to be able to answer in an appropriate way. But I'm calling be our complication, every man is different. They're going to have all different kinds of questions. Some relatively easy to answer, others we might have to say something like this: I've never really thought about that before, and be willing to admit, I will want to do a little bit more research and then get back to you later. Every person is going to have different kind of questions, some very sarcastic, some serious, sincere. Then others are going to provide, so quote-unquote, evidence for evolution. By the way, how much evidence is there for evolution? Anybody know?
None.
Zippo. But they claim to have it. And intelligent, educated men and women at least claim to believe it. There are going to be doctrinal differences. Well, how do you answer that? Well, study to show thyself approved unto God. We've got to get the truth in our minds and hearts first. There are going to be objections. There are going to be difficult questions that are asked. Some people might be sarcastic, some might be curious, some might be indifferent, some sincere. Some may evidence understanding or gross misconceptions. And so we have to know how we can answer every man. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to have all the answers. 1 Corinthians 9:22b, Paul said, I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means win some. Now that verse is often taken out of context. And so I'll go sit in a bar so I can witness to people there. I don't think that's what Paul's talking about. But he's accommodating himself to their intelligence level, their background, how much Bible they understand, and so on. Same thing, really, he's talking about here in Colossians. Every man. Know how to answer every man. Therefore, I need grace from God for appropriate speech. So let's kind of bring these last few verses to a conclusion, which I think is good to do because it's been spread out over 3 or 4 weeks now. First of all, we want to regularly win others to Christ. Verse 3. We should pray for open doors to do so. Thirdly, we should be prepared doctrinally and logically to speak the mystery of Christ, that I may make it manifest as I ought to speak. We go on to see that in verse 5, we need to walk in wisdom toward them that are without. A good testimony will provide opportunities or give power to our words. And then, the last part of verse 5, we should buy up those opportunities. When the doors are open, when God presents the opportunity for us to witness, we need to take advantage of them. As the context goes on, our walk and our speech will either help or hinder our witnessing. And so finally, logically, ask God for gracious speech. And there's only one other thing left, and that is do it. Just do it. So we need to be looking for those opportunities. We need to be praying for those opportunities. And when the Lord presents them, be ready always to give an answer for the reason that lies within you. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how you ought to answer every man. Comments, questions? Okay, I was hoping to get some. I only have a few things of my own, to ask, well, not really my own, but to ask for prayer.